Hey all, I'm Apurva and welcome back to WeDesified. Human Computer Interaction or HCI is one of the emerging and fastest growing courses in the recent years. If you take the availability of jobs, the pay scale, demand for skills, and the number of students taking this course, HCI is one of the hot cakes in the industry right now. But there is very limited guidance available if you want to pursue it or for someone who is currently pursuing the course. And that is why today we have with us Shivam Gupta. Shivam is a recent graduate of Masters in the Human Computer Interaction and currently working at Google as a user experience designer. We are going to talk all about HCI as a course, the requirements and jobs and his experience. So let's get to it. But before that, if you find our content helpful, then please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your every like, comment and subscription really motivates us to keep making these useful videos for you all. So subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon right now. Welcome Shivam. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about your journey, and I'm sure that the information which he'll be sharing today will be very useful to our audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Apurva, for having me here. I think what you guys are doing with WeDesified, curating all the contents that are necessary for people to succeed, I think it's going really amazing, and I hope that this video that we are recording today helps a lot of people. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So my first question to you is, for someone who doesn't know about HCI, what exactly is human computer interaction all about?
Okay, so probably to answer that, I'll start with a small example. Think about how 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, when you had this TV in your house and you had a remote with 50 buttons and you didn't really know how to operate them or how to use your TV remote. From there on till today, we have simplified in a way where the remotes now today have only 5 buttons. And that journey of how we can make things easier for people to consume, I think that is a lot of things that can be taught in human computer interaction. So it's basically, to simplify again, it's the interaction between any sort of technology, be it digital or an automatic product, and humans. How do they interact and how we can make it easy? That is what human computer interaction is all about.
That is very fascinating. So how do people get into this course? Like, are there any entry criteria or what are the requirements to pursue this course?
I think that's a very valid question, and to answer that, it might be a very counterintuitive answer that there are no requirements technically. I actually know a lot of people who come from all sorts of background, be it acting, be it nursing, be it teaching, and they are coming into this field because this field needs a lot of people coming from varied background to add their experience, which is what makes this field what we are trying to do, the human computer interaction, creating better user experiences. And I think it can only happen when people from all sorts of background are coming. So technically you don't need any requirement as such to get into this field, but definitely there are few things that would help you be successful in this, like just being a little creative in terms of how can you solve something. And I think that's one of the key thing that is required, the problem solving approach, because as long as you have that approach, and we all do in a way, that will really help you to identify what you need to solve and then take it forward to solve it. For example, myself, I came from an electronics and communication background. I was a developer for a few years, and that's after that when I got into the field of designing. So to begin with, I had no context or no understanding about how to design itself, but from the background I came about electronics and communication engineering, that I think gave me a launchpad to understand how to just solve problems.
You came from an electronics background. That is quite interesting. So could you please tell us more about it, and how did you come to know about HCI?
I think to answer that question, I'll have to take you all the way back to my childhood. Ever since I have been a kid, I have been this curious person who wants to understand how things work, and not just in terms of technology, like digital technology, but everything that's all around us. For example, during fall season, all the leaves fall, but during spring they come back. We look out in the space and look in the universe, and I wonder what is out there. So all of this has been very fascinating, and this actually reminds me of an incident that when I was 5 years old, I remember sitting in front of the television, and obviously technology in India was progressing much slower compared to other countries in the world. And I remember sitting and watching my favorite show, and there are like all these small people in the television box, and they're black and white in color. And I started wondering like why there are small people inside a box in my home, and that too black and white, even though the outside world is colorful. So obviously, to satisfy my curiosity, I opened the television box, and like any other time, I wasn't able to successfully put it back together, which landed me in a lot of trouble with my parents. And that was not just one incident which landed me in a lot of trouble with them. There were like multiple incidents in which I wanted to understand about something, and to satisfy that curiosity, I would just go ahead and do it. But I think that curiosity is something that has stayed with me over the years, and that is why when it came to deciding what do I want to pursue in my undergrad, I chose electronics and communication because at that time I was really fascinated with hardware. Think about it, all these small components coming together, and then suddenly we have something called laptop in front of us, or we have our mobile phones or our smart watches, and they are so functional nowadays that it just amazes me how all these small components are coming together and making it possible. But while pursuing my electronics and communication, what I realized was that hardware alone in itself is not enough, because with all its amazing computational power, a laptop is pretty useless if there are no operating system or not even a simple application like calculator running on it. And that's why once I finished my undergrad in electronics and communication, I wanted to move into software industry, and that is when I started working with Infosys as a software developer, and then I moved on to Wipro and UBS working as a software developer. But my aim at that time was to understand how do we power these hardware by writing certain codes, and that is what was fascinating to me at that time, the software aspect. But once hardware and software aspect was done, I was like, okay, what's the next most important things in the product and service world? And I think that's when I think my friend came as a rescue, because they had already came to the US pursuing a degree called human computer interaction. And I was just talking to them one day and I was like, hey, you know what, I'm stuck here, that I've done hardware, I've done software, and I don't really know where to go next. And then they started talking about this field, and a lot of things made sense, because like I mentioned previously, a lot of people from different backgrounds are coming, and that really adds a lot of different experience. And I thought, I have hardware experience, I have software experience, I think I can bring a lot to the community through those experiences, and I can add a lot of value. And that's when I started wondering, how can I do this? So I started looking into master option in US, and that's where I came across like the different universities that were offering this course, and I applied for that, because after hardware and software, the next important aspect that made sense to me was user aspect. Because at the end of the day, for whom are we creating all these hardwares? For whom are we creating all these softwares? Because there are certain user problems, user pain points, and that's why all these organizations are out there creating products and services which actually help them overcome those challenges. And that's why I decided that yes, this seems like a good option that I want to pursue, and I decided to do my master's in human computer interaction.
That's a very powerful story and a great example for SOP. So this is how you should narrate your story in your SOP, because you want to convince the admissions committee that you are the right candidate to pursue that course. So great story, Shivam. So again, like, how did you apply? What was your application process like, and how did you prepare?
So I think the very first important thing was deciding when do I want to come to pursue my masters, and that's when I decided fall 2019 was the year. And to prepare for fall 2019, I started with my GRE process in Jan 2018, and that is because I was working full time. So the only time I could dedicate was during the weekends. So I started with GRE and TOEFL. I gave the exam sometime in mid 2018. And after that, 1st of October is when most of the applications open up, and based on their deadlines, I started applying to those colleges with the required artifacts like SOP, LORs, portfolio, and resume, if you're specifically talking about HCI. In terms of what's important, in my opinion, SOP, like you mentioned, is definitely the first that takes place, because it tells the story of what have you done so far in your life, why do you want to pursue this degree, and where this degree will take you once you have done with it. So SOP is super important. The next thing that I would say is important is portfolio, because a portfolio basically tells how do you approach problem solving, and that is what they want to see in an applicant, that do they have the ability of understanding how to approach problems and how to solve them. And then on the third place, I would probably put LORs and resume at the same level, because they just add more to your personality from somebody else's perspective, specifically LORs. And that's where you need to take LORs from at least 3 people, and it depends where people want to take it, right? For example, because I had work experience, I decided to take a couple of them from my office with my manager, with my team leads, with my clients, and then the one that was remaining, I took it from a professor that I had worked with during my undergrad. So a good mix of LORs really helped tell the admission committee your overall personality from somebody else's perspective. And then resume is something that will put a lot of more information that you couldn't put in your SOP, which is in a way still relevant to you, but at a little out of scope from the master application that you are doing. And then the last thing that I would put is the test scores, GRE and TOEFL. I know a lot of people at times emphasize a lot on these exams trying to score a certain amount of score. But what I would say is, and I think this almost proves because of the last couple of years of pandemic, that during this time, a lot of university waived off GRE and that just shows that probably it's not as important as we think it is.
Right.
So definitely, in my opinion, SOP, portfolio, LOR, resume, and then the last but not the least, the test score, just to act as a prerequisite that a applicant has the required aptitude to understand certain things in quantitative, qualitative, and language terms.
You mentioned about this portfolio. So what exactly is portfolio? Like what are the requirements? And is there like a format to it?
So again, that's a great question. Portfolio is basically a accumulation of certain works that you have done that again showcases your ability towards problem solving. For example, when I was submitting, I didn't have a design work to submit itself. So I submitted my electronics and communication academic projects that showed that, hey, there was this problem, this is the approach that I took, and this was the solution that I came up with. And that is what they want to look at when you're coming up with a solution. Do you understand the rationale behind of it, and can you convey and communicate to it? So a portfolio does that really well. Again, it just doesn't have to be your case studies that you have done. It can also show your creativity. For example, I am a poet, so I wrote my poems in there. I also paint sometimes, so I added that. So again, it's just a document that shows I can solve problems. Beyond that, I'm creative. Beyond that, there's so much more to me than just problem solving as well. So a portfolio does that job. In terms of format, there is no specific format. You can use a PDF, you can use images, you can use a website. Just in whatever medium you can convey this information to the admission committee, it's good. As long as they can see your content, it's good. So there is no specific format or any requirement. Just whatever makes you showcase your best work in the best ability and communicate it well to the application team, we are good on that.
So coming back to the application, then how many colleges did you apply to, and then on what basis did you apply to those colleges?
Okay, so when I started applying, the very first thing that came to my mind was I do not have a design background, so maybe I won't have a very strong application. And for that reason, I applied for 10 colleges. But the 10 colleges, the way I chose them was based on 3 parameters. The very first being location. I think location matters a lot where your university is situated, because that gives you the edge in terms of having contact with local based company. So for example, if you are in Austin, Texas, there are a lot of tech companies around there. If you're in California, there are a lot of companies around there. But if you are in a place like, let's say, Michigan, Ann Arbor, there are very far and few big companies. Even though University of Michigan is one of the best university that is in the US, if we are again talking about HCI, but just the location wise, it could have done better. So that's why location is always one of my first criteria. The second one is course. The course that you're going to do should resonate with you, and the way you can check on that is by going through the curriculum and looking at what the university is offering to you in terms of those course structure, and does that resonate with you. For example, do you lean more towards design, do you lean more towards research, and does the university curriculum caters to that? That is very important, because again, just from my experience from talking to people, I have known people who have come here thinking that they'll gain something else out of the course, but it was completely different. So that's why instead of being disappointed, it's very important at the very beginning to look at the curriculum to see if it resonates with you or not. And the third and foremost, I think, and one of the most important, especially for international student, is the cost of attendance. How much are you going to pay while pursuing this education? And in my head, when I was deciding, one of the parameters was very clear. What's the worst can happen after I graduate? And that was not getting a job. It was as simple as that hey, if I don't get a job, I'll have to go back to India. So now that brings me to a question as to what amount of debt I am willing to take back to India and not feel overwhelmed by it. And that's why when it came to choosing college, these were the 3 parameters: location, course, and cost, which I took into consideration while choosing those 10 universities. So finally, out of those 10, when I applied, I got admitted into 5. And again, just coming back to those parameters, I started wondering which one fits the best. And that's when IUPUI, I think, just fit all the all the 3 parameters, because location-wise, it's great. There are a lot of good companies in Indianapolis, it being the capital of Indiana. Course-wise, it leans a little bit towards research methods, but that is what something I was interested into learning as well, more than the visual design itself. And the third parameter, cost. Along with my admit to IUPUI, I also got 10 hours of employment as well as scholarship, which reduced my cost of attendance a lot at IUPUI, and that was the reason why I decided to come to IUPUI.
The on-campus employment must have definitely reduced some kind of living expenses, so that's great. So did you do any other kind of on-campus employment, or did you get any other assistantships?
Yeah. So apart from the 10 hours that was offered to me in the admit letter itself, once I came to the university in the US, I reached out to professors, and that way I was able to secure another 10 hours of employment as a research assistantship. So basically, when you are on your F1 student visa and when the semester is ongoing, you can work up to 20 hours per semester on campus. And that's why I was like, if possible, I would want to do that, not just because of the money, but also because you get technical knowledge while working in with professors. And that's what I did. And the way I did was I reached out to one of my professor with whom I was taking class at that time, and I think just because we had that interaction before, it was easier for me to communicate that, hey, this is something I'm looking for. Are you doing something currently that would resonate with me and that I can add value to it? And that's how I reached to a couple of professors, and then out of them, one of the professor was working on an accessibility project, which resonated with me, and I was like, okay, this seems good. The professor thought I could add value to that project, and that's how I started that research assistantship for 10 hours, along with the 10 hours that I had received, which turned out to be a teaching assistantship with a professor, and it was for an undergrad class. So that's why I was doing like 20 hours per week.
That's some really helpful advice, and this is exactly why you should always reach out to the professors, asking them if there are any job opportunities without the fear of any rejection. So our next section is going to be a little technical. So if you're in the pre-application process, we would highly suggest you to save this video and then come back, watch this later where you have more understanding, because we are going to talk about the coursework. So Shivam, how did you plan your coursework and what were the important courses you took?
So when you specifically talking about IUPUI, when you get an admit, along with that, once you have accepted the admit, you get something called study plan. That study plan enlists all the important courses that you have to take, which is like core courses, electives, selectives. So it enlists all those courses. So talking about the important core courses, the very first semester itself, you will be taking a couple of courses named IDM, which is Interaction Design Methods, and another one is ITP, which is Interaction Design Practices. In my opinion, these two core courses are the most important that you'll ever take in your 2 years at IUPUI Masters, because they teach you everything that you need to understand of how to work in this particular field. Beyond that, there are other core courses that you have to take, like I mentioned, based on the study plan. But what a lot of people miss out on is that the flexibility that you have to take different courses beyond those elective and selective that are mentioned in the study plan. And the way to do that is definitely, first of all, reaching out to a professor that you might seem, hey, this is an interesting course that I want to do, but it's not on my study plan. So reach out to the professor. If the professor agrees that they are okay with you attending their class, reach out to the department, and as long as your department and the professor that you're reaching out agrees, you can take any course which is beyond your study plan. And that is something I have done myself. For example, there was a course that was being offered by Heron School of Design, which is another school in IUPUI, and that course was never listed in the study plan. But I reached out to the professor, I reached out to the department, and they both were okay to have that credit counted towards my degree, and that is what I did. So based on that, I decided what courses I wanted to take, including the study plan, as well as what I wanted to do in terms of what resonated with me. But again, coming to the point, I think if you're coming here to pursue masters in the US, what you need to realize is that the education system that we come from, especially from India, and here it's very different. Here, no professor would come to you and ask you why are you missing classes or why your grades are bad. You need to be really proactive in doing those things. And that's why whenever somebody asks what is the masters, how to do masters in the US, what I always tell them, it's very self-driven, very self-learning, very proactive based course. As long as you reach out to the professors, they'll be more than happy to help you with whatever you need. But you have to be the first person who takes that step. And I think beyond courses, that is where I got most of my learning, by discussing things with my professors, by discussing things with my peers, with the other people who were taking the courses. Because again, if you just keep doing what the course asks you to do, you will learn something for sure. But if you want to learn beyond and learn how real world works, I think it happens a lot with discussing things with the professor and with your peers, and beyond your curriculum work as well. For example, design challenges. There are a lot of opportunities available during your 2 years that you can participate in a lot of design challenges, which actually teaches you how to function and how to collaborate with other people to solve problems.
I know, right? The US education system is so different than the Indian education system, and you have to constantly, proactively look outside the classroom to learn things. So, Shivam, did any of these learnings help you in your job search? And did you do any internships?
Yes, so I did my internship during my third semester, and absolutely, to answer your question, these design challenges, I would say are the ones who helped me the most beyond classroom. Like classroom provides you with the education that you need, but how to implement it's something that I learned from these design challenges, especially because in these design challenges you just don't work with designers or people who like understand the same language that you are speaking. Here you get to work with different people coming from different backgrounds who are non-designers, for example PMs, for example engineering team, and they don't necessarily understand when you say like, oh, we need to create wireframe or we need to create prototype, because in terms of engineering they are more focused on data, on coding. In terms of PM they are more focused on roadmap of the project. So this is the place where you actually learn how to communicate with different stakeholders who do not necessarily come from the same design background. So these design challenges definitely helped me a lot, and definitely helped me into getting internship as well as full-time job. But they are very difficult to come by, internships and job, and you have to apply to a lot of companies to get into that.
Like, why do you say that? Is it like difficult to get internships?
So I think it's partially has to do with the fact that as international student, a lot of times your visa restrictions come into place. In my opinion, most of the time that you get rejected, it's a system automated rejected, where because you say that in future you might require H1B visa sponsorship, and that is where a lot of times your application gets rejected through systems. For example, when I was looking for internship, I applied for over 600 companies while looking for just internship. And then when I was applying for full-time job, I probably applied for over 1100 companies to get a full-time job. And the fact is, it's not about applying to these many companies. The calls that you get back are really, really low. For example, out of those 600, I probably got call back for 10 internship interview opportunities, and with full-time 1100, I got about 15 to 20. So that process is really difficult. And out of that process, I learned two things. The first thing is, being international student sucks. You have to apply in quantity if you want to get those opportunities to get into those calls. And the second thing, yes, there is a downside to this, but there's also the fact that there are 1100 plus job opportunities available. So there is no lack of opportunity. It's just that a lot of times, because of our visa restrictions, the system rejects us. So the way definitely to go forward with is this: while you keep applying through career website and through LinkedIn, you can apply in bulk. But the best way to do that is by reaching out to people, asking for referral, asking people that, hey, can we get on a call to just talk about this is what I'm trying to do. Do you have any opportunities? So networking is a really big thing if you want to achieve those internship and jobs.
So you mentioned about LinkedIn and making connections. So how did it help you with your full-time job search?
First of all, I think by connecting with like-minded people on LinkedIn, it helps you grow as a person, it helps you grow as a designer, because when you start talking with the industry experts who are there for years, they share a lot of insight that help you understand things better from a better perspective of how things work in the real world beyond academic. So definitely that helped a lot. And especially like my first job, the way I got it was by reaching out to a manager who posted on LinkedIn that they're looking for product designer for their team, and I reached out to them. I built up a conversation, and that's how I actually landed my first role at VMware, through reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn. And it definitely helps a lot in terms of just by talking to people and building those genuine relationships. For example, you reach out to someone, they might not have a job for you right now, but if you build a genuine relationship by having a good conversation, you never know, in future they might have something that you might be a good fit, and they would know from a previous context that talking to this person was really nice. And at times, even if they don't have a job, they might know somebody who have a job. So definitely networking helps a lot in US while searching for jobs.
And then how was your experience at the VMware?
It was absolutely great. I think what I mentioned earlier, like how Design Challenge taught me how to collaborate, I think that was one of the major things that I did at VMware, collaborating with people from different stakeholders, the engineering team, the PM team, the service team, marketing and sales team. Because I think as a designer, you're in a very unique position where you get to talk to a lot of different departments. And unless you don't understand how they communicate, it really becomes difficult to do your real work, which is like visual design. So visual design is usually a very small part of it. The major part is talking to different teams and understanding what is required and then aligning on it. And I think at VMware, I got that experience just to talk to a lot of different teams. And then one thing I learned was that work will eventually be done in one way or another. It's more about building genuine relationships and providing psychological safety to your teammates. And I think my time at VMware taught me that being more mindful and being more considerate about your teammates is super important. And the way you do it is by just collaborating beyond work as well. So that was my experience at VMware was really great.
That is so true. Collaboration is so important. It helps you gain so much experience and learning. And once you graduate, it is very important to keep gaining these kind of experiences. So Shivam, now going ahead with the Google job that you have recently got, how was it like the interview process with Google and the entire experience?
So to answer that, I think I'll have to start by what I answered previously about networking, and that's where all this started with Google. I just joined a group from my alumni from my undergrad, and out of that, one person reached out to me and said that, hey, if you ever need a referral at Google, just let me know. And I never thought about it before. I always thought about networking in terms of I have to reach out to people who are maybe in my grad school or who are my grad school alumni. So I never thought about my undergrad alumni. Out of that, I was like, yeah, sure, you know what, you want to give me a referral, please go ahead and give it to me. After that, I got the referral, I applied to these jobs, and after that I got my first screening call, and I wasn't expecting it at all. But that first screening call is what it started and landed me the Google role. So the way Google process works is a long process, and this you would find especially with all the big tech companies, you know, the fangs like Facebook, Amazon. You'll always find that they have a similar process which is very lengthy. So for me, it almost took more than 6 months to actually, from the very first application to actually getting a job, it took me a long time. But the way the Google process works is that first you submit, so there is a screening done on the things that you submit. For example, your portfolio, your resume that you submit, they do a lot of screening on that. Once that screening is completed, and if you go to the next round, they call you for a presentation in which you present a case study and you try to tell them why have you done this project. Again, going back to all before what we discussed about telling people your approach as to why did you solve a certain problem in a certain way and why did you arrive at this solution. So communicating it to them through that presentation portfolio was really what is required in the as a part of second round. If you clear that, nowadays Google does vary their process, so you might get into team matching and initial team matching where they try to see if there are certain teams that you can match with, and if yes, that is when you move forward to the next round. And these team matchings are not technical, they're just trying to understand if you're a good fit for them and are they good fit for you. So how can you add value to that team, and in return can that team help you grow. So that's what team matching does. If you again find somebody in which you match with a team, you go to the next round of interviews, and this is the most important interview in the entire process. It's a virtual onsite, or nowadays because the pandemic is kind of subsiding, they have started calling people back onsite as well. So in this interview, you again start with a presentation portfolio, and after that you have 4 one-on-ones. Now these one-on-ones are on a lot of different things like googliness, on your behavior, how do you approach problems, and one of them is whiteboard challenge. So again, going back all the way to design challenges, a lot of times design challenges help you build that understanding of how to approach these whiteboard challenges. So those are part of those 4 one-on-ones. And once you clear those rounds, you get into the next round of again team matching. If you clear that round, based on those team matching, if you get a team, that is when Google sends you the offer. If not, even though at this point Google does believe that you are good enough to be at Google, but if there is no team that finds you a good match where you can add value or they can resonate with what have you done in your life, it's a little tricky. But that is how the Google process works, and it takes a lot of time. Like I mentioned, in my situation it took me over 6 months to just get from that first screening call to get the offer. So it's definitely a lengthy process, but definitely what I would recommend is believe in your recruiter, because they want the best for you.
Right.
And they would be your best friend during that entire process. So just believing in them, being patient, and just taking one interview at a time, I think that is what helped me to get the Google offer.
Can't agree more. So Shivam, what is your role at Google now, and what would you be working on?
So my role is user experience designer, and I'll be working on the Google Cloud team on their database side, helping them create experiences for their customer. Right now, I am in the training phase where they teach you a lot about what's the approach that people take in Google, what are the processes that we follow, and that actually really helps you to know the way that you need to work at Google. So that's what I'm currently doing right now. But I think in a couple of weeks, I'll be starting to work on the projects for my team, and that's when I'll gain a little bit more understanding about the projects itself.
That sounds exciting. Once again, Shivam, congratulations on your job at Google. Before we conclude, what advice would you like to give to our future and current students of HCI?
Thank you so much, Apurva, first of all. And then just to give the advice, what I would say is go beyond what you're going to learn. Try to see where all you can get the understanding towards different problem solving approaches, because not every time the same problem will come across you and then you have to just use the same approach to solve it. There will be always there are different problems that you have to take different approaches to solve it. And the way that you can do is, like we discussed, go beyond classroom, do design challenges, do passion projects, reach out to your peers to see what they are working on, reach out to your professors to just talk about things and ask them their opinions. And this will also help you in holding conversations with various people, which will again help you during your internship and job interviews, because one of the keys during interviews is not to just do question answers but to make conversations out of it. Because think about it from the recruiter's perspective, they are talking to 10-20 people every day. If you just answer their questions, that is exactly what others are doing. So the way you can stand out apart from the work that you show is by holding conversations with them and just making it a human to human conversation instead of a question answer where a recruiter answers you a question, you answer, they ask you a question, they answer, and then that's how just the interview ends, and it does not make it a memorable interview. So that is why it is super important that you learn how to hold conversations, and there are different ways that you can do it. For example, there's a platform called ADP List. Here you get a lot of mentors, over 7,000 mentors that you can reach out to and just talk about, maybe if you want to talk about your portfolio, maybe if you want to talk about your resume, maybe if you want to talk about your career path. And this is where you can have those informational conversations with the people who are already in the field, which will again help you gain better understanding in what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. And this again will tie back to the same point of creating network, but of genuine relationships. Because if you every time just reach out to somebody very specifically asking for referral, nobody is going to give it to you because they don't know you. But if you start with building genuine conversations, asking about them, asking what they're working on, asking what are some skill sets that are required in their job, and just understanding about them, that will help you a lot in building that relationship. And I think those are one of the important things that I've learned in the last couple of years, is that building these relationships helps you a lot in networking, helps you a lot in gaining confidence, helps you a lot in gaining the knowledge that is needed in this field to be successful. And I think those are just my advices. Go beyond your classroom, learn. There's so much to learn from the outside world which will give you the real world experience. So just don't be confined in the coursework, go out and explore.
Thank you so much, Shivam, for giving us your valuable time. And it was really, really insightful. And I'm sure that your story and the information you shared would be really motivating to all the students here who are aspiring to do their masters in HCI. So thank you again for that. And I wish you a very best. I hope that you have great success at Google and beyond. So thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you so much, Apurva, for having me. What you guys are trying to achieve through WeDesified, I think it's incredibly inspiring to just see. And I wish you all the very best in the endeavor that you have taken up. And just to the people watching this video, feel free to reach out if there's any way I could help. They'll be attaching my ADP list link to the bio. Please feel free to reach out, and all the very best in your career.
So that's all we have for this video. I hope it was useful. We will come up with more such interviews soon. If you find this content helpful, then please like and share this video. And if you have any questions, then please ask in the comment section below. We will reply and make more videos answering all your questions. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time, take care, keep learning. Bye-bye.